Now, has fraud reached a scale where the banks will have to delay some kinds of online payments to protect us and to protect themselves from financial losses? Well, Santander thinks that it has. 95,000 people were scammed in the first 6 months of this year by criminals who persuaded them to move money from their accounts into the criminals' accounts. Santander also wants banks to collect and share more information about their customers, where they're sending their money to and why, again to protect us. Most of this kind of fraud starts with a text or an email, and that text or email will look like it's coming from your bank. Sharon Bolsh in Worcester can tell us more about how it happens, because it happened to her. So Sharon, I know that in your case it all happened with a text. What did the text say?
It basically said somebody's been trying to use your Amazon account, and if this was you, press yes, and if this wasn't you, press no.
So what did you do?
I pressed no, and then I went immediately to ring the bank, and as I was put in the queue, a call come through to say they were my bank. So I just trusted it.
What did they tell you to do next then?
They said, oh, all your cards have been compromised. It'll be better for you and safer for you to change your cards. And you can put your money in this temporary account, and we'll send you the cards through the post maybe in a day or two, and the bank will ring you up past 10 in the morning to confirm this.
I know they're really, really convincing, these people, but what was it that convinced you that they were your bank calling you?
Well, I had that logo on, you know, when you ring the bank, the text message had the logo, the Halifax logo. The number was very similar to the bank's number, but when I looked closer, when I had, thought about it, it was one number different.
Yeah, it's horrible, isn't it? How much did you send then into the criminal's account from your own account?
£4,000.
Oh.
Table.
Sorry, that you just broke up there. £4,000, and then what did you say?
Both my sons are disabled. They're severely autistic, and my husband's furlough money at the time, and I just had my universal credit put in, so it was all that money that left. We didn't have any money for a loaf of bread or pay the rent or anything.
So it was nothing. Every penny you had, as a family?
Yeah.
Every single penny you had. Did you get the money back?
Yeah, about 2 weeks later, but I was 2 weeks without no money.
What was that like? Upsetting. Sorry, obviously, very upsetting.
It was very upsetting, but my husband is a veteran, and when the veterans heard about it, they did a whip round for us, so if we could have a bit of money to, to get some shopping and that, pay the rent.
Sharon, just stay on the line, because I want to bring in Dave Lowe now. He's had a fraud at Santander. And Dave, when someone like Sharon moved a big amount of money in the way she did, what are you proposing should happen in the future to protect her?
Yeah, hi Winifred, thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
So what we're proposing is, right now, what's not working beyond the banking system is there really is no requirement or incentive for those parties whose platforms are being used for fraudsters to obtain access, to people like Sharon. It's clearly the social media platforms, the search engines, the telcos. So what we're proposing is we want the government to bring forward the online safety bill. We want to bring those parties to the table, and we want to do that because we want to prevent these exact type of scams from happening in the first place.
Okay, so you think everyone should do more, including the telecoms companies? People are getting these messages from criminals by text or email. But let's just stick with the banks, if you would.
Of course, yeah.
I know that you are proposing that some of these payments are delayed. So tell me what would happen to Sharon if your proposals were taken up.
So if we had a scenario where we had what we considered to be an unusual or a higher risk, or even perhaps a higher value payment, what we're proposing is that there should be a clearly defined set of rules within our payment schemes that allow banks to delay payments. It could be perhaps a few hours. It could be perhaps a few days for more complex cases. And what that would do is two things. First, I think fraudsters prey on the opportunity of creating urgency.
Yeah, they always do that. They say you have to do it instantly.
Right?
Okay.
So any enforced delay is going to help break that. But secondly, what it would give us the chance to do is to ask a few questions, again, potentially either to uncover that the payment is perfectly good and legitimate, or where it's not, again, just ask the questions of the customer, of the individual, that again might help to expose this isn't quite what it appears to be.
In Sharon's case, you could argue that the fraud might have been prevented if her bank had just answered her call and not left her holding the line. Now, this year, Which ranked banks in the time it took to answer these calls to their fraud lines, where you would think they would be answered really promptly. Now, your own bank, Santander, you were third to bottom out of 12. It took Santander an average of 19 minutes to answer on your own fraud helpline. The longest wait was over an hour. You know, why isn't it more of a priority?
Well, so I guess two things. First, absolutely, it's a priority. We allow customers, we want customers to be able to call us 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. The challenge that we've seen, quite simply, is the scammers grow more and more sophisticated, and the amount of time that we need speaking to our customers continues to grow. However, to your point, we are actively recruiting and training more colleagues, and we plan to have an additional 400 in place by the end of the year.
When you say 400, 95,000 people were scammed. What I'm suggesting is that an adequate number to recruit when you look at the scale of the problem you're facing?
Well, I mean, that's just an additional 400, to be clear. I mean, that would bring our capability to almost 1,000. So yes, we believe it is a sufficient number to have much more acceptable levels. So for instance, in 2021, our average rate time was 7 minutes. So that's much closer to where we feel it should be, basically.
You're also proposing that banks collect and share more information. What sort of information?
Well, it depends on the type of payment, but to help bring that to life, you can imagine if a customer is making a payment, perhaps for an investment, today we do have, in certain cases, confirmation of payee, but not every bank, not every payment service provider has to sign up to that. We're proposing that we would collect information such as, is the receiving account a personal account or a business account? How long has it been open? What's the sort of history of transactions like? So in this scenario, imagine it's a large payment. It's the first payment that the customer's made for an investment. And what we can see is it's not a business account. It is a personal. It was opened 2 weeks ago and has never had a credit of more than £10. That's going to give everybody involved some really big concerns, and would therefore mean that we would essentially slow that payment down, look into it, and if we determine it's a scam, we wouldn't make it, and we'd protect the customer accordingly.
Banks already have a voluntary code, which means they're meant to give the customers their money back if those people acted in good faith, the customers that is. It's not always happening. Only 60% of the money lost is being repaid. Looks like that's going to change in the future, that you'll have to give all of this money back. Briefly, if you would, will that provide the impetus that the banks need to do a bit more?
Well, look, we welcome the payment services regulator recommendations. We're big believers that we support the principle that customers who've been scammed after acting in good faith should be reimbursed. We'd like to see a level playing field as well. We think if all parties in there are signed up or mandated, then that would be great for the consumer.
David Lowe from Santander. I'll stop you there. That was David Lowe and Sharon Bull. 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 David Lowe and Sharon Bull.